So what I thought I would do today is I would talk about how to work creating inside of a DAW, in particular Pro Tools, since that's what we're using. I'm shooting you this way because I'm right-handed and I want to mic things up. And if I'm here with the microphone or here pointed in this direction, my right hand can handle the mouse and the computer keyboard, right? So it's ergonomically set up. If you're left-handed, you might be on the other side. You might consider the other thing, but you need to set up and be ergonomically set up to make your workflow better. And one of the biggest things to killing your workflow is to always have to think and to stop working, to get things, to set up, right? You want to be ready to go and then just do it. So, there's this, I read this book, and in the book there was a quote from Abe Lincoln, and I don't know if it's true or not, but if you want to cut down a tree, spend 2 or 3 days sharpening your axe before you start cutting down the tree, right? If you want to have a successful recording session or successful anything, you really need to spend time preparing, right? And if you fail to prepare, you are preparing to fail, as I say often. So let's take a look at what I've done here, okay? I have a microphone. It's all set up, and I'm going to show you how I've done this, a little bit more detail. I've got a second camera angle. I've got my audio interface over there, which I'll show you in a sec. Actually, I could show you right now. Right, so I've got over here, that red thing is my audio interface with some stuff plugged into it. And this tan thing is a guitar amp that I'm going to use. And notice it's set up with the cable on top of it. Notice that this microphone here is plugged in to here. I've got right here plugged in the microphone that I'm talking to you with. And this microphone here is not much different than those AKG microphones that you guys got in the recording kits, which is why I'm going to use it. And then, excuse me, back here, I've got my guitars set up. I've got an acoustic guitar, excuse me, and an electric guitar, right? They're set up and ready to go. And over here, I've got some percussion instruments that I might want to try out, right? You don't have to have all this stuff. Whatever you have is fine, but you just set up and everything's within arm's distance. I've got a tuner right here for my guitar. I've got some guitar picks right here. So I'm ready to go. And that's a big way to keep your workflow dynamic and moving forward, to not have to constantly thinking like, oh, where's that thing I want to use right now? Where's that living? Right? Now all of a sudden I'm not creating anymore. I'm not working. I'm trying to figure out where stuff is. And that also pertains to your Pro Tools session. Oh, hold on a second. I don't need these in here. Now, if we look here, I've got a bunch of tracks in here. I've got a drum machine, which I'll show you. I've got another track with expand and drums. I've got a track with upright bass. I've got a keyboard pad track. I've got a track for my piano, electric piano, organ. I've got a track set up for electric guitar, and I've got a bunch of unnamed audio tracks. And then I've got these tracks down here, which are my time-based effects like reverb and delay. And I've got an extra one of these time-based effects set up. These are AUX tracks, which I'm going to go over today a little bit, but I'll go over in more detail next week. So I'll just give you a basic rundown on these tracks. And I've set all this stuff up before, and I've already color-coded some of the stuff, and other things I've left uncolor-coded. I'll figure that out later. Now, I have a little idea of what I want to record. I've got a little thing that I've been thinking about today, and I'm going to make a recording of it. And just to be honest, I actually, in a much more detailed way, used it in my Audio Midi 2 class, which meets just before this. So I'll be recreating what I did there, but we're going to have a different result because I'm going to record. We'll see where the path takes me. Now, the first thing I want to do is I need to move that bar 1 so that it starts later on in the timeline, because if I'm recording audio, I need to have a little pre-roll in case I come in early so it doesn't clip off the beginning of the track. Now, you could just say, I'm going to start recording at bar 3, and that's perfectly acceptable. But I like, my music starts at bar 1, not at bar 3, right? That's the way I think as a musician. So I put my playback head on bar 3. I'm using the selector tool, and I'm just clicking anywhere on the timeline. And then I'm going to go to the event window and use time operations and move song start. All right. And I'm actually going to change it so that it starts, I'm going to start at bar 4, just so I have a little bit more up front. And I'm going to rename the song start to bar 1. Renumber the song start, to bar 1. And hit apply. And notice now, here's bar 1, and it's, 6 seconds into the track. All right. Great. Now, what I want to do is I need to get my tempo. I have an idea of a piece of music that I want to record, right? And I'm going to do it on an acoustic guitar. And the first thing I want to do, and you should do this before you start recording, right? And I did this before, but I'm going to double check now. And I'm not going to record this right now. I'm just using this to get an idea. But I do want to make sure it's in tune. So I'm just going to tune this up really quickly. I've got a tuner there. All right, it was actually stayed in tune from the last time. Let me move this out of the way. So I have an idea for a track, right? And it's going to go something like this. And you're going to hear this audio just through this microphone here, not through that microphone, because I haven't enabled that for recording yet. That's the idea I've got for a track, right? So let me play that again. Bum, bum, ba-dum. I'm keeping that tempo in my head. Bum, bum, ba-dum, da-da, bum, 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 ba-dum, bum. So I'm going to open up my change tempo dialog. And, right, I'm going to tap using the T key on your keyboard in tempo, and that's going to get me to an approximation of the tempo that I'm playing at. So, bum, ba-dum, ba-ba, bum, 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 ba-dum, ba-dum, bum. So it's saying 115. Let's try 112, and let me listen to that. So I'm going to turn on my click track. And I'm going to make sure it's playing back during play and record. Oh, and I'm going to change the sound also. I've got a preset set up with a nicer click. I'm going to try it a little faster, maybe. I'll go up to 114. Whoops, not 4. Yes, the tempo is 1,143 beats a minute. So let me just let me see how that feels playing it, right? I'm not recording anything yet. Yeah, that works out well. I like that tempo. Now, you can play along to that click track, right? But that's kind of boring. It doesn't really give you anything to work with. no feel, right? So I'm going to create a feel using, I've got two machines here, two VIs set up for drums. Now, we haven't used this plugin yet. It's called Boom, and it's like an analog drum machine, you know, like from the 1980s that you would hear. And basically, I can call it up. If I go to my Air Music Technology, it's right here, Boom. Or you could go to Instrument. I've just got 5 million instruments, right? So it's Boom. And this is the GUI for Boom. Now, Boom has a lot of preset patterns in it, but we're not going to use those patterns. Well, you can, we're not going to, I'm not, I teach Boom and drum programming next semester in pretty good detail, but we're going to use Boom as just to play sounds, not to use the built-in sequencer and drum loops that it has. And right here, there's a menu where you can change the kinds of sounds it has. So if I record enable this, so I'm playing these lower keys, right? So I'm not a big fan of that for that feel. Let's try Urban 1. So I click this and there's a menu of all these different drum kits, right? Yeah, I don't like the kick drum there. I like that kick drum. Let me just... Nope. No, so it's Urban 2. Right, that's kind of like the groove that I was playing. You know what I mean? So I'm going to record that. And instead of doing count off, I've got all this pre-roll now. So I'm just going to put my playback head at -1, right? So I've got 2 bars of count off. And let me get a little bit more comfortable here. So I practice that 1, 2, 3, 4. Tick, 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 tick. Right, so I just did 8 bars. And it's pretty good. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to quantize this so I get really good timing. So I'm going to go Option 0, and I'm going to set it to 16th note because that's what I played with 16th notes. And I'm going to do the strength, but I'm only going to go down to about 90. I don't want to make it completely mechanical. So that just tightens things up a little bit, right? I don't need to have this on during play and record, just only during record. That sounds good. Okay, and I've got drums right here. Okay, so I've got this cross stick. So I'm going to want to play this cross stick and give me a little backbeat feel, right? So that's 2 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Now, a little something to consider when you're recording, right? I hit record here, and let me just do it here. I'm hearing the subdivisions in my head before I start playing, right? Because I know I'm going to be doing right? I'm going to be doing those syncopations. So I have to feel them inside of me before I can play them, and this way they become it become easier to play. So I want to lock in on the timing during the count off. Right? So I'm just getting that feel in. And so now I want to add just a little bit more activity in the drums. I want to add some hi-hats. Right? But now those hi-hats are way too loud from my estimation. So I'm going to click on expand, and I notice that in one of these slots are the hi-hats. And this is the volume for those hi-hats. I'm going to click and bring down that volume. So I just clicked and dragged that to the left. Great. So let me just let me play this. I'm going to play along. Now, what I need to do is something called Midi merge. And I'm not sure if we went over this before, but that's this control right here. When you click on this and it becomes blue, that means that you can overdub MIDI information onto this track without erasing what's already there. But I'm just going to practice right now. Okay, I think I can play something, so I'm just going to give myself 2 bars again. So I'm starting at -1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1E and a 2E and a tick, 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 tick. Okay, so I made a mistake there, right? I liked a lot of what I did there, so I'm going to do the same thing, kind of quantize that. And bars 1 through 4 are really good, so I'm going to highlight those, and then I'm going to use the duplicate function, which we went over, which is Command D, and then there we go. Yeah, one thing that I'm not getting is I want something on the downbeat there, so let me fix that. So I'm just going to drag, click, and hold the Option key down and drag that over. Whoop. That was a little weird right there. All right, let's see. Right. So I'm just going to clean that up. Nope. Right, and then I have to fix that right here too. Okay. So this is fine. I like this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to build this out so that it takes up a lot of space down the timeline. So I've selected those first 8 measures, and then I'm just going to do Command D a few times. Right, and it gives me like 1.5 minutes of this drum beat. And this will be really nice to play along with. Now I'm going to de-record, enable it. Now, I have a lot of ways that I could go right now. But since the acoustic guitar is going to be the feel of this piece, I think what I want to do is maybe make a rough acoustic guitar track and then play a few other instruments in here, and then I will see, I'll probably re-record the acoustic guitar track again. And it's getting a little warm and stuffy in this room, so I need to get up. I have to take my headphones off. Give me 1 second. Okay, I just turned on the air conditioning. Let me pin myself so that I stay up on top. Great. All right. So let's do this first. So Okay. So I've got this microphone here, right, set up. If you have trouble figuring out how to set this up, just remember one thing. When you tighten all these things up, don't over tighten them, right? This here, like the clip on here, don't tighten it like, like the Hulk or anything like that. Just make it nice and firm, but not over tight. All these things, because you'll strip the screws out and then everything. So I've got the microphone set in. I've got the cable plugged in here, right? And just so that you're aware of, let's do this. Okay, you see where it has the name Audio Technica right there? That's the front of the microphone. So where your microphone says AKG, that's the front of the microphone. All right. So that's plugged in now here into channel 1 of this Focusrite. Now, this is a condenser mic, which means that I need to turn on the 48-volt phantom power, which is on this one is here. You'll just have to see where it is on the Scarlett. And notice, before I turn this on, I'm making sure that this is the gain control for the microphone. I'm making sure this is all the way off. So that means it's all the way to the left. And the reason you want to do that is when you turn this on, you don't want like a popping sound from the power coming on to go through your system. Now, once you've got the Focusrite hooked up with USB, right, and I think that I should have done this first, but I think we went over this a little bit last week, is that you'll have to go here into your setup window, to your playback engine, and select the Focusrite, whatever it says. It'll come up as Scarlett. I've got all these different audio devices, but you'll pick your Focusrite here, and you should probably do that at the beginning of the session. What Pro Tools will do is Pro Tools will give you a dialog that says you need to shut Pro Tools down and restart it in order to use the new audio engine. Just do that. It's not a big deal. And then reopen Pro Tools. Okay. So now once you've got this set up like this, that means you can't use the headphones on your laptop, the earbuds on your laptop, or the speakers on your laptop for Pro Tools. The audio interface takes over Pro Tools, and that means that you need to use the headphone jack. So there's a jack. This one has 2 jacks. You would plug it in your headphones right into the audio jack, and make sure that the volume on your headphones are all the way off before you plug it in. Right? So this is like before you start working in Pro Tools, you should be doing this stuff, and before you plug any microphones in. And then just bring this up enough so that you can hear what you're doing, but it's not killing your ears. Be really careful about volume when you're wearing headphones. Now, I don't have my headphones plugged into here because my system is set up a little bit differently, but this is the kind of interface that you'll be using. I have an additional output coming out of this, which is my backup audio recorder for our class videos. So I have a backup in case something happens to the audio. Okay, so you've got this set up and the volume is off and your phantom power is on. Time is to, how do you set the microphone up? Well, I think the way I'm ergonomically going to sit is I'm going to try to sit like this so that I'm catty corner, right? I'm at like a 45-degree angle to the desk. And this way, I don't have to, if I'm like this, I don't have to do this kind of twisting to get to the mouse and the keyboard, which when you get old like me will, make your body mess up. So, yes, I'm ergonomically set up. And obviously, if you're left-handed, you would reverse this whole process. Give me 1 second. Hopefully I won't slurp into the microphone. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to make sure that this is facing towards me, and I'm going to lower it a little bit. Now, microphone technique, right? With an acoustic guitar, what you want to typically do for a rhythm section guitar, for a solo guitar, might be something different, but for a rhythm section guitar, which is what we're playing here, you want to take the 12th fret of your guitar as the spot you aim the microphone at. So I'm bringing this down, and then I'm unloosening this and twisting this up. So it's black, which makes it really difficult to see everything. But now see how it's perpendicular to the ground. And if I'm seated in a playing position, right, if I'm in a playing position, you see that the microphone is pointing right at the 12th fret. It's on the same plane, from the same distance from the ground as where my fingerboard on the guitar is. So that looks pretty good. Now I may adjust that, and I'm going to show you the difference by moving the guitar, by moving myself around while I play the guitar. And so what you want to do is, I've got an audio track right here, and let me let you see that. I've got an audio track right here. I've highlighted it, and I've double-clicked, and this is going to be A, G, T, R, and the number 1. Oh, that's the exclamation point. We want the number 1. Great. And I want to set my input, which is the top, right? So if you don't have, right, so now what you'll have to do is you'll have to go to your view and make sure you've got your I/O. Well, that's not there. I'm sorry. My brain is a little frozen. You'll go here and make sure that I/O is selected so that it's viewable now. All right? You really need to see your input and output now when you're recording audio. So I click here on the top. So the input is in the top slot and the output is in the bottom slot. You don't worry about the output. It will default to output 1 and 2. Go to your input right here and make sure you select input 1, because you've plugged the microphone in to input 1, right? Okay. So now let's do this. So once I've done that, I'm going to record enable this by clicking here. And even with the volume all the way off on there, you can see that there's a little bit of something happening here. So that's a good sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to strum the guitar a little bit with my right hand, and I'm going to bring up the volume gradually, and you see it's getting louder. And now let me take a look at that. So I'm playing really hard, and that's just a little bit low. So I'm going to bring it up just a third of a turn or a quarter of a turn. You can get just a little bit more than that. Okay, that's great. So I'm ready to do a take here, but I think I should practice first, right? So you see these 4 controls right here. You've got the blinking red, record, enable. The next one is the track input monitor, solo, and mute. If you want to play along with the track, so right now, yeah, so you're hearing the acoustic guitar through this microphone right now, and a little bit through my mouth, you know, what you hear my dialogue through. If you want to hear this while Pro Tools is playing, you need to click on this eye and make it green. That means you'll be able to monitor the input. So let's do this. I'm going to go to -1. And what I'm going to do with the click track is I'm going to set it up to only play and record so that it's clicking while it's playing, so I can get my count in, right? sloppy, right? So I need to practice that a little bit more and make that a little bit better, for a little bit better, right? I need to practice that a little bit more. So I'm going to just take a second and I'm going to find the spot that didn't work well was when I changed chords. Right, so I practiced the part that was, yes, Alan, cardioid. I practiced the part that was giving me trouble. All right, so don't play the whole thing. If the beginning of what you're playing sounds good, find the part where you need help and work on that. You need to make the weak spots as strong as the strong spots. And you don't do that by playing the strong spots over and over again. You do that by isolating down. And I know the graduate students all know this, but we've got a lot of undergraduate students here too. You isolate the parts where you're having a problem and you practice those. So you just break that down a little bit. And I'm going to show you some techniques now where you can actually work things out and record things and make them work even if you can't play it all the way through properly. So I'm going to do a take of this and then let's see what happens. 2, 3, oh, hold on. So now I made a mistake, right off the beginning. Undo, which is Command Z. I want to get my left hand in position right now and so this is going to be a scratch track, which I might get rid of later. So if it's not perfect, I'm not going to worry about it. But if it gets to be egregious, I might have to fix something up. So my right hand is ready. My left hand is ready. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I like that. That's perfectly fine for a reference track to work off of. So I'm going to Command S and save, and then I am going to turn the record button off, and I'm going to put my guitar back. All right. I know that this is like I'm documenting every step I'm making, but many of you have never done anything like this before, so it's good. And I'm going to move this out of my way for the time being. Now, you don't have to touch the record volume on the interface because you've turned off the input right here, okay? And I don't need this schmutz right here. Okay, so let's take a listen to this. And let's get this back to only during record. So I'm going to have to be more careful of my timing on the next take, but this is fine for now. So what I want to do, I've got a bass sound. I'm going to add my bass in, and I'm going to sort of build this track up around that guitar track, and then I'm going to replace that. Once I've got a few other instruments up, I'm going to replace that guitar track with a better played track and move on from there. Okay, so also what I need to do after I roll up my sleeves is let's duplicate this so that it's twice as long. So I've selected from 1 to the beginning of 15, which is 14 bars, and then Command D for duplicate. Okay, so I've got a bass here, and I'm just going to play along with the track and see what happens. Okay, so what do I think of that? I didn't like it, so let me try something else. I'm getting somewhere. So I'm going to work, and I'm going to make as if I can't play keyboards at all, and show you guys how to create a bass track with limited skills. All right, so let's try this. So what I want to do is, what instrument should the bass lock in with? Bass drum, drums, excellent. So we've already got a bass drum track right here, right? So let's do this. Let's open this up. And every one of these notes is the bass drum. So if that's on a C, so if this is a little trick. So this, if I know that this is on the pitch C, so if I click, you can see that the C turns purple. So if I click on that, they all become selected. So I'm going to copy that. So Command C. And then I'm going to, that started at measure 1. I'm going to paste that in, or actually I'm going to repeat, merge paste that in to the upright bass track. So Option M, like Mary, upright bass. So now, but I've got the wrong pitch because I'm in the key of E. So let me just drag this up. Right? You see how that's already grooving? Right? That's right in there. And there's nothing wrong with doing this, all right? You're using the tools to create a performance, and it's the great equalizer. I could play this part in perfectly well, and I'm going to edit it to make it more interesting, but some of you can't play keyboards. So how do you create in a format where keyboard is the way that you input MIDI information? This is one of the ways to do that, all right? So let's do this. It's too loud, these notes, and they're too hard. So that's MIDI velocity. So I'm just going to click right here on this velocity lane and bring all these down. All right, great. So what typically happens with bass lines is you want to lead into the downbeat. Okay? So this starts off boom, 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 boom. And also the length of these notes is really good because you don't want it to be dum, da, da, dum, right? Somehow I played the bass drum in really well. Boom, 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 right? And I'm letting go on beat 2 so that leaves space with the bass line. That leaves space for the cross stick to sound. Right, you hear how this note ends when you hear the click on the cross stick. Right, you hear that? I'm leaving space, and that's bass phrasing. So these are all pretty good. I don't have to deal with the lengths here, but right here at the end of the bar, doom, doom. Let's do this. I'm going to transpose this up an octave. So you hold the shift key down, push the up arrow, and then this I'm going to move up to a B, and then down to a D, right? So let's see. Yeah, I like that. And I'm actually going to add another note. I'm just click option, dragging that. Yeah. No, this should be here and then a little bit longer. Right, so you see how I'm editing in a bass line instead of playing it in, which is helpful for some of you. Okay, so the chord changes here to an A, right? So I'm just going, let's see how long that lasts. So it lasts these two measures. So I'm going to click and drag. And now, as I drag these up, you'll notice that the notes here turn purple. So I want to get to this pitch here. So I'm just going to click right there. Okay, and drag up. Make sure your grid is on so you don't mess up your timing. And I want to go from here, I want to lead up to that A. So make this a little bit longer. Hey, come on. There we go. Boom. Beep, bom, boom. So I think what I want to do is a little bit different. This one, so this is shift and the upward arrow. And then this, go up to it, like, right? Just move that around. And then this, we want to get back down to this E. So that's where that chord comes in. Right there. So right here we have a little bit of a problem, and we might have to do some other work here. So this is actually, I know that this is a C sharp, so let's go up to the C sharp. And that this is going to be going back to an A. So right here, we're going to have to do a little bit of work. So maybe we'll play this part in right here. Right? Okay, so we're going to delete all that. So let's try, look at this. Dum, dum. Right, and I know I'm going back to that to an A. All right, so I want to start recording right here. So let's do our count off, and we'll come right in. So, and we're going to keep it simple. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I kept it really simple, and I like that. And I'm going to have to fix that a little bit in 2 levels. First of all, it's too loud, and the timing is a little bit off. So we'll quantize that, option 0, right? And we've got our strength set around 90%. It says 89%. We don't want to make it mechanical. We just want to get a little bit closer. And notice now that these velocities are too loud. So we're going to click and drag all of them down. I messed this one up. Fix this. Great. Okay, so I like that. Let me close this. And for right now, I'm going to duplicate that. And I may go back later and tweak that and make that a little bit more interesting. But great, so I'm just going to select from here to here, and then Command D, duplicate, and we'll leave that there for now. So now I've got my first 2. Okay, so right now, if I mute the acoustic guitar, I'm going to listen to the bass and the drums. Now this, we're going to start talking a little bit about mixing here. So it's a little loud, the bass. So I'm just going to bring it down using Midi volume right here. It was 96. I'm bringing it down to 81. Okay, that's too soft. Bring it back up to about 90. Yeah, I brought it down to 92, and that little difference, because it makes a big difference. It sounds better now. It's not so over the top. All right, so I've got some keyboard sounds here. I've got an electric piano sound, and I've got a Hammond organ sound. And I think I want to, I'm having a concept in my head right now, okay? So I'm going to have this acoustic guitar. And that's going to be a rhythm. That is, I'm going to do an electric guitar that matches that a little bit. I'm getting this concept in my head, and I want to have the acoustic guitar on one side of the stereo field and the electric guitar on the other side of the stereo field, right? So I'll right now just start panning this, even though I'm going to be replacing this track. Let's just get right into it. And what I think will work really well with this electric piano sound is if it's in the middle, just keeping everything filled out in the middle of the stereo field. And it's going to play a complementary part also to the acoustic guitar part. So what do I mean by that? Let's go to the videotape. Right? Something simple like that. I mean, I only play with one hand, right? And I was playing 2 notes at a time sometimes. Very simple. And it fits. I'm going to bring the volume of it down a little bit once I play it in. So let's record that for real. 1, 2. Oh, hold on. I've got my, I don't want to count off. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, I like that. I'm not even going to quantize that. That's perfectly acceptable to me. It's a little loud, so I'm going to use my Midi volume and bring that down. Let's take a listen. So now I'm soloing the electric piano and the acoustic guitar, so I can hear what they sound like together. So you see how they fit together like a glove, like this? It works out really well. And then this little figure here, right? Just so that it's not so repetitious and, you know, predictable. What was that? All right, so you see my acoustic guitar is way early there. So I'm gonna, the electric piano is fine. And the timing on it is better because I'm a keyboard player, not a guitar player. And it's just the way it is. But let's move forward. And we're going to just duplicate that, right? And I may go back and do something like, for example, the first time through. Maybe what I'll do is I'll get rid of this little fill. right? The first, and I'll keep it for the second time. Right? And then the second time through, I have kept the whole fill. I think that's a nice tiny little change, makes it sound like somebody's playing along instead of just duplicating, and that works out really well. So the next sound, and this is an instrument that I haven't showed you guys yet, and this is called DB33, and that stands for drawbar 33, right? So this is a Hammond organ clone, and you know, I could spend a whole class teaching you how to program Hammond organs, but basically what you can do is you can just go through go through some of these presets and find one that works well for you, right? And I like this particular sound for this particular song. Now, there's a couple of interesting things with this, is that it has this simulator for the Leslie speaker. Now, what a Leslie speaker is, it's actually named after the guy who invented it. His name is a little bit in the style of Doors, except that they would be using a different kind of organ sound, John. Right? They'd have that Vox Continental organ sound instead of this Hammond type sound. And they only used electric piano later on. Well, even though he played electric piano bass, he used this kind of electric piano in the last couple of albums. Before that, it was almost exclusively that organ sound. What was I going to say? And in a minor key, right, Alan? Okay, so what this Leslie speaker, named after a guy named Don Leslie, and when the Lawrence Hammond, who invented the Hammond organ in the 1930s, it had a it made out of sine waves, so it had a very plain sound. And in order to make the sound pleasing, they came up with this speaker system that had eventually it was a bi-amplified speaker. It had a rotor for the high frequencies and a larger woofer for the lower frequencies. And the rotors were on a motor that made them spin around, and then the speaker had a rotating drum that went around it. And what this did was it created something akin to what's called the Doppler effect. So you know how if you're standing somewhere and let's say there's a train passing you by with the train whistle and it changes pitch as it goes by you, that's happening because of physics, not because the actual thing that's making the horn sound changes pitch. It's this thing called the Doppler effect, which I could get into, but it's a long tangential. It's off topic, but basically what it does. So this is the sound without the rotating speaker, and then once you click this over to the right, it's going slow. Right, and you can sort of hear how it's sort of rotating, and then all the way to the right, it's going fast. And you can hear it speeding up. Well, they have this mapped to the mod wheel. So many of you have keyboards that have a mod wheel, and there's two wheels on the left-hand side. The one all the way to the left is called the pitch bend wheel, and the one to the right of that is called the mod wheel. And when it's all the way down closest to you, that's off. Now, on this keyboard, it's a little uncomfortable for me to use these because this is an 88-key keyboard, and this is better used on like a 49-key keyboard or smaller, so that your hands aren't like this, you know, so that everything's more compact. So what I've done is I've got that mapped onto this little fader here so that I can change the rotating speaker. You can draw that in afterwards, which I'll show you. But let me do a take with the organ. And I also have on the floor something called an expression pedal, where I can change the volume, which is Hammond organ players. We all do that over and over again. So let me play a take on the first and see what I got here. All right, so let's take a listen to that and see if I like that and clean up any mistakes. Let's open up the MIDI editor. And the first thing is I'm going to go down to expression. And I brought the volume up too slow. So let me fix that like this. And I haven't taught this yet to you guys. So I'll go over this a little bit more. Yeah, let me go over this right now. So in the bottom of this edit window here, there's a little triangle. And if you click on it, you'll get these things over here that are called lanes. And you might have a bunch of them up. Well, just click the minus sign till they go away, right? So you only need to have one up at a time. And in here, this little slot right here, if you click on this, it gives you all the controllers that you can play around with. And I think we might have had this open to play around with MIDI volume. But if you click on this, there's two ways to control, I'm sorry, not MIDI volume, MIDI velocity, I apologize. There's two ways to affect volume typically in MIDI, with MIDI volume or with expression. And expression, it's a term that I've always, as a keyboard player, whenever I play live, I always had expression pedals on the floor to use to control the volume of my keyboards. And that comes from organ playing. In Hammond organ or in pipe organ, church organ, that volume pedal is called an expression pedal. So they call this MIDI control that controls volume, that they call that expression. And I've got a pedal hooked up and I've got it programmed to shoot off expression. So I'm going to play around with, just listen right now for expression. Make sure things aren't too loud, things aren't too soft. Okay, so right here, this gets to be a little bit loud. So I'm just going to click and drag like this, and then use my trim tool and bring that down, just like that. Okay, so this palm gliss here, that's what they call that, a palm gliss, because you're using the palm of your hand to do that. That's way too loud. So I'm going to bring all of that down. Just I'm selecting all that. And then I'm going back to my trim tool and I'm bringing that way down. And let me draw in a little crescendo here. Yeah, again with that. So just let me draw that in, clean that up. Okay, so right here I have a bad note. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so there's one other thing I don't like about this, and it's that I've got the mod wheel. It either needs to be on or off. When it's in this middle position here, I don't like the way that sounds when the rotor's not going on. So let's do this. I want this to be full volume here. So let me just go from here over and then off. Right, so it's either off, the volume, the mod wheel is either at no value, which means that it's the slow rotor, right, or it's full value, which means it's the fast rotor. If the value is in the middle, that'll be when the rotor's braked, they call it, where it's stopped, and I'm not really liking the way that that's sounding for this track. Yeah, so that should really start here. And then maybe I could have the rotor be off here. So like this is what Hammond players do all the time. They're constantly turning it on and off. on that last chord, we'll bring it in. All right. So I like that, but why does it have to come in on the first verse? All right. So what I've done is I've separated this out at measure 1 using Command E. And I'm just using the grabber tool, and I'm just going to slide this over so it starts on the second verse. So my first verse, it will just be guitars, right? And the second verse is when the organ comes in, right? So you see how I'm building up an arrangement here, right? Okay. Now I think it's time to get a better guitar track in there, right? So I've got a nice bed here to play on top of. So I don't need any of this stuff, so I'm just going to delete it. Now, it doesn't delete it from the hard drive. It just deletes it from the track, because over here in this area, these are our clips lists. So if I just take this and drag this, right, that's my, I didn't delete it from the hard drive. I just deleted it from the edit window. It's still in our list here, so you can always, it's non-destructive. So I'm going to save what I've done right now, and then I'm going to get set up to record acoustic guitars again. Now, there's something called making your, like on the electric piano. Remember, notice how I played very simply. I didn't go. I didn't do that. I don't need to do that. I got this guy doing that. Staying out of that guy's way. The guy has freedom to do whatever they want, right? Because I'm not playing notes that are in the bass's way. And that's a big thing about making a pop track like this, or any kind of track, is leaving space in the low end for the instruments whose job it is to hold and support the low end, have the room to play what they need to play. So that means that doing rhythm section stuff, you need to sometimes not play full parts and play very simple parts. Give me 1 second here. Nothing like a hot beverage after you've been yakking for the entire afternoon. All right. So what does that mean for the guitar? Well, if I'm playing an acoustic guitar, oh, I can shut this, right? We don't need this. If I'm playing an acoustic guitar, I got this low E string right here. Let me record enable this. Right, so if I'm going, if I'm playing by myself, accompanying a soloist or a singer, no problem with that, right? Hold the whole fort down. You got the low note and everything. No problem. I need to have this part, though, fit in with all these other instruments. I don't need this. And I don't need all that extra in there either, because I've got the drums doing so much, right? So I can just do something like, simpler. I don't need so much space because I've got so many other things going on. And we just need this to play the things it needs to play to fit inside the track. And that means reducing the number of notes you actually play. And that's a big secret to making a track that a lot of people don't know. They think everybody has to be playing to the full extent of their capability at all times. And that's like garbage. Right? That is not the way to make a track. That's not the way to make an arrangement of any kind of music. If you're writing an orchestral piece, if you're writing a big band piece, no matter what you're doing, if you listen to the great music, right, it's arranged in a way where not everybody's always playing from the beginning to the end. People come in at different spots, they leave, right? They stop playing, they're tacit for 8 bars, and they come in and maybe they're only playing a couple of notes. It's like a play. every instrument, every line, every melodic should be like a character in a play, and it needs to have its unique spot in that timeline of your piece to fit in, right? I talk about this over and over again in my other classes, and and it gets to the point where this is a big point that I want to make to all my students, and this is something that that I came to the conclusion about this, not through some divine intervention like I was walking down the street and a lightning bolt hit me and I just thought of this. No, this came to me because I spent over 30 years of my life sitting in a Broadway pit playing music that fit into a story and seeing how a story was enacted on stage, right? And seeing how music can have that same characteristic. And then once you start listening back to music, which is one reason why I had you do that musical blueprinting, right? Because you were listening to how all those events and all those different instruments would come in at different spots, and maybe something be in the left ear, something be in the right ear. There'd be certain notes in the low register, certain notes that sound closer, certain notes that sound further away. All that stuff is part of storytelling, and all music should be storytelling, no matter what kind of music you're writing. And I'm sorry if you've heard me say this before. It's hard for me to keep track of which classes I'm telling that to this semester. So you think about like how your music's supposed to fit in an arrangement. Just the notes you need, no more, no less. Just the notes you need, no more, no less. All right. Enough pontificating. Let's go back to measure -1. Is this helpful for everybody? We're just like, we're going to be doing this for the rest of the semester. I'm going to be demonstrating and showing you all these techniques, and hopefully it will make your life creating your piece of music a little bit easier. If we were in the studio right now, we'd be doing this all together in the studio right now. It's a lot of fun, and I feel badly that we're not in the studio because it is a lot of fun, and we've got instrumentalists this semester. We could really have done something great. But like I said, I might have said last week, or maybe I said this to Recording Studio, Audio Midi 2, this is actually more of how you're going to be working, sitting with your laptop and a microphone by a desk with headphones on. This is more of how you're going to be working. And yeah, Al, very funny. You're going to be working like this, and you're going to be sharing your work with other people and having them play stuff on top of it. And we're going to go over strategies for that as well. And, this is how we communicate right now. Okay. All right. So let me just, now another thing, right? This is my secondary instrument. I have to really make sure my mind is clear and I'm not talking, and I want to, as the count off is coming in, I want to feel the subdivisions of the beat. So in other words, if the click track is on the count off is going tick, 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 I'm feeling tick, 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 tick. I'm feeling that subdivision, right? So that I'm ready on the down 4, 1, boom, and I'm playing the rests, right? The space in between my notes is not just blank space. It's not. It's. I'm feeling that space between the notes, and that's how I'm keeping time. That's how you keep time, is feeling that space between the notes, feeling that subdivision pulse all the way through, and then feeling how it ebbs and flows. Sometimes it might be a little faster, it might be a little slower, but making sure that linear tension of all those subdivided notes is constant. That's not really in the purview of this class, but hopefully it's helpful. All right, so let me get my sound now. Good. All right, so we're at -1. I'm getting my left hand set up, so I don't have to think about it. Bad. Made a mistake. I hit it too loud, right? 2. All right. Okay. 2, 3, 4. So see, I tried to get fancy and it didn't work out. Okay, not a problem. Let me show you how you work that out. So I'm going to mix as I go along. I don't need all this schmutz here, so I just delete that. And let me play this back. Okay, so right here is where I started making my mistake. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this, right? And I've got a second acoustic guitar track set up, right? This A GTR 2. Now, there's something called playlists. I don't typically teach that during this class, and I'm set my input to input 1. I'm going to start a little early, and I'm going to play along with the track, and I'm going to come in over here to fix this up, and then I'm going to copy and paste this all onto one track. So let's start here. Oh, so, okay, right. Okay. So let me get rid of this. I actually like this section better than this section. So what I'm going to do is, whoops, I'm going to delete this up here. And then now I'm going to go back. I'm going to find out where I made that mistake here. All right, so we're going to come in here on that C sharp chord. So I'm just going to delete that. All right, let me go here and then turn the record off here, turn the record on here. Look, I could play this whole thing as a take. I'm showing you how to construct this, right? You know, I could get this through as a take. It's not a problem, but this is quicker, and this is what we do. One more time. Okay, I like that. Get rid of this beforehand. Delete, right? Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to go to grid mode, and I'm just going to copy, or I'm just going to highlight that, and then I'm going to use my grabber tool and just slide this up. It's going to get rid of some of this, and I'll fix it. So I just drag that up there, and then go to slip, and use my trim tool. Right, this is fine here. Oh, that whole thing is fine. All right, so I've got my take. And I'm going to save that. Now, I'm going to go to my grid again. Whoops. And I'm going to select all of this. All right, and I'm going to duplicate that. I may go back and do another take later. I'm just getting the raw basics up there now, and I'll clean this up and maybe do some variations later. So I'm going to put my acoustic guitar down for now. And then I want to add some electric guitar. So let's see. Let me turn off. Oh, one thing to be careful about, right? If you have a MIDI track enabled in record, and then you record, turn on the electric an audio track to record, it does not turn off record on the MIDI track. You have to turn that off manually. And if you're going to record on another track, you have to turn it off manually. All right? Audio tracks stay record enabled until you turn them off, and they don't affect the record enabledness readiness of a MIDI track or an instrument track. So for an example, if I record enable this piano track and I go, now I want to record the electric piano, I click there. This is no longer record enabled. There are ways, if I hold down the shift key, I can have both of these going. But for right now, You see how that switches that? That doesn't happen, right? It doesn't turn this off when you're dealing with an audio track. So be careful about that. You could erase your MIDI. You could erase your MIDI information really quickly. All right, so let's move this out of the way, and right now, let me switch my camera view. All right, so I've got this little practice amp here. It's battery powered, and what it has is it's got two outputs in the back. They're called line outputs. They have little 1/4-inch cables, left and right. This is a stereo output. So I've got those two going in to these line inputs on the back of here. If you have something like this in your Scarlett, you would plug it into the front, and then you would keep these lower because this mic preamp is really hot. I don't want the mic preamp. I have them in the back here. All right, and I'm going to turn this on by turning on the power. And then let me teach you something about a guitar amp. You always plug the instrument first and then into the input of the amp. If you plug the amp first, you've got this is live, and if you touch it, it starts making a really crackly sound in the guitar, in the amp. And if you have plugged in the guitar and you plug it into the input, it makes a really loud sound. And it doesn't really damage the amp, but you know, I remember being in a quiet theater, and the bass player once, well, more than once, the musicians would tune their guitars, and then they plug the amp back in they plug their bass back in from the amp instead of plugging the guitar in and then plugging the cable into the input. So I've got this guitar here, and right, I'm plugging this 1/4-inch cable here, and then I'm plugging the 1/4-inch cable right there. Okay, so Alan, one thing I wanted to tell you is that if you Alan has the same amp. If you turn the guitar amp volume down here, it doesn't affect the tone, but it bypasses these speakers. So then you can monitor from right inside of Pro Tools. Okay, so I've got that plugged into inputs 5 and 6. All right, so I've got this one already set up. Okay, so I want to tune it up. Now, I could just take my tuner here and pop it here, and I probably would do that. I probably should have tuned it up first with this, but this also has a built-in tuner. Just I'm going to be a hypocrite right now, but always use the same tuning resource for every session, because tuners are not all the same, especially if you've got something like one of these things that clip onto a guitar headstock. They're not perfect. So I've got a built-in tuner in this, so I'm just going to tune the guitar, make sure the guitar is tuned. Sounds great, doesn't it? Okay, so I want to play something that fits in. I'm going to turn on the input monitor, and I'm going to solo the acoustic guitar, and I'm going to solo the electric piano. And I want to play something that fits in with those guys, right? And this is going to be my wall of rhythm. Okay, so notice how little I'm playing. I'm doing. That's perfect. You don't need anything more than that. No more, no less. So let's start off here, and I might have to punch in when the chords change here. We'll have to see how that works. So let's do this. I think I'm just going to play without the drums, just the click track and these instruments, so that I know I'm really tight with these instruments, because that's my bedrock foundation, harmony foundation of this piece. 2, 3, 4. Oh, I only gave myself one up front. What are you talking about? What's your problem, bro? One. Oh, minus. Sorry. Okay. A little softer. Okay, great, nice, right? I can get rid of this little false entrance there. And I want to come in here with this next bit. Now, let me just show you something with my acoustic guitar playing. I'm a little ahead of the beat with my acoustic guitar playing here. So I'm going to select all of my acoustic guitar playing. And let me show you what I mean by that. See this is the grid right here, and you see all my transients are a little bit ahead of the beat. So I just want to move all of those so that they start just a little bit later. So use slip, use my grabber tool, and just drag it over just a little bit. All right, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I could tell you stories of very famous jazz artists who record their solos 15 beats a minute slower and then speed them up for the final recording. Yes, very famous studio guitarists. So I want to come in here, but I don't want to chop off the beginning of the note. So I'm going to set my entrance point right here, and then if you go right up into this area here and you make sure your transport tools are available, you'll see something right here that says pre-roll and post-roll. So if I do pre-roll and I set it for 2 bars, that means it's going to start playing 2 bars before this spot. And if I click record, it will start recording right at this spot, but it'll give you 2 bars of pre-roll. So this is called punch-in recording. See that, how it started 2 bars before? And if I record enable it, you hear the click track. Watch. See how it's recording now. All right. We'll go over this again. So I want to make sure. Oh, okay. So now another thing, right? With this electric guitar, I do not need to play these low notes. I could even just play the chord like this. Just like that. I don't have to play these big full chords. Not necessary. I've got 2 other instruments playing the music. So let me just do this better. Let me build back better, baby. Right, I just got to play it better. All right, that was pretty good. There's one thing I need to get rid of, clean up. there. Ugh. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to record that little bit. Right? And I need to have what's called post-roll, so it doesn't clip off so quickly. Let me just do one thing here. Right, so what will happen now is this is punch and recording. I'm only going to record this highlighted area. It will play 2 bars before. It will record this highlighted area and continue on for another few bars. Okay, so which chord is that? So I think I'm just going to hit these 3 notes and not even the top string. Good. Let me just, whoops, sorry. This is actually right near my house, about a 45-minute walk, by the way. Okay, great. All right, so I've got my guitar, my electric guitar done, and I'm going to, for right now, I'm going to duplicate that onto the next verse. And I've got this one acoustic guitar panned all pretty far to the right, to the left. I want to pan this so that it's on the right. It's a stereo track, which is what comes out of that amplifier. So what I want to do with this is I want to take the left channel, and I'm going to hold the Option key down. I'm going to click on the left channel, and that moves it to 0. And that will give me a nice pan. I'm going to bring the volume down. Good. All right, I want to add one more electric guitar track. So I want to look, I've got a stereo track right here, and you can tell it's stereo is that it has a left pan and a right pan, as opposed to a mono track, which only has a pan in the middle here. So I'm going to click and drag this up. One of my lights just went out. Bummer. Okay, that'll go, let's see, let's put it above. And this will be E, GTR, whoops, 2. And my input is 5 and 6. I want to change the sound a little bit, so I'm going to go over to the amp and I'm going to just turn the gain up a little bit. And I'll have to turn the master down a little bit just to compensate. All right, let me play along with this. And I want to do something where it's a little bit loose. It's not so much of a pattern. It's not so much of a pattern, and it's a little bit freer, a little bit looser, and you know, just give it a little bit more of a human feel to it. No, there's going to be no singing here, Al. You got to be kidding me. Unless you mean a Vox Continental or a Vox amplifier. No, this is fine. I'm going to just leave this like this for now. Okay. Okay, right, some tasty little fills. Is it the greatest thing since sliced cheese or sliced bread? Probably not, but I think I'm going to leave it for now so that we can continue moving forward. And I might erase some of these. I might not use all these, but I've got them there, right? Okay, good. So I'm going to turn my amp off, and I'm going to save, and I'm going to unplug from the amp. Right? Let me just turn this off, and then unplug my cable. Get it away from my feet. All right. I want a little bit more reverb on that, and I'll show you. I'm going to go over how to do these sends next week. We're not going to have time today. Acoustic guitar is a little loud, so I'm going to bring that down. So see, that's a good thing about mixing is I've soloed these two guitars, and I wish people would leave me alone and stop texting me left and right. Okay, so do you see I'm balancing those two? They sound balanced now. I brought this down quite considerably, and that's much better. All right, so I'm going to add some piano now. Now, you guys have used MiniGram before. Let's talk about it a little bit. So it's got its own built-in effects. I don't want to use these, so I'm going to take this as the mix. These are different kinds of reverbs. This is a hall. See how big it is? I don't want to have any of that, so I'm going to turn the mix all the way off. And I want to go for a brighter piano, so it's almost like a Yamaha. Great. So let me just play along and see what comes up. I'm actually going to record this. Why not? Right? It's just MIDI information. It's not like it takes up hard drive space. Huh? Qu'est-ce que c'est? Something happened. Hold on a second. Oh, you know what happened? I've got the expression pedal I used on the organ. I must have hit that. All right. Wow. Freaked me out. I was playing and there was no sound. What is up with that? Okay, -1. Here we go. Okay, so that's okay. But I want to mute this electric guitar because it's getting in my way, and I don't want to use all of it, these little fills, right? So I'm going to probably have to go back after I take my piano, get a good piano take, and just be judicious in the use of these little fills here. So they were getting in my way. Okay, let's go back to -1 and do another take. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Good take. It's a keeper. Save. Anyway, I'm going to leave that. That's fine. Now, I'm going to listen to this fill guitar, and I'm going to get rid of some of these. That works fine. Don't need this one, so I'm going to delete it. And that one is good, but it's too loud. So I separated that out using Command E, just putting my playback head anywhere over here and hitting Command E. And then right here using my clip gain and bringing that down. I'll go over this more next week. Okay, so I don't like that. It gets in the way of my piano, but this, I like that. So let me get rid of this. Don't need this. And this, I like this here. And then what I'm going to do is the piano is just, in general, it's too loud, so I'm going to use Midi volume and bring that down. All right, save. So, right, in 2 hours, or so a little under 2 hours, and instructing as well, I've put together a 60-second bit with some live instruments and some MIDI instruments. And I don't have one set way of working. If I was writing an orchestral piece, I'd be working differently in some ways than this. But what I will say is the same is being prepared before I actually start writing. That's like really, really important to me, is being prepared before I start writing, because you see that I didn't have to go searching for my guitar. I didn't have to go searching for a guitar cable. I didn't have to go searching for a tuner. I used a different pick for the electric guitar than I did for the acoustic guitar, because I like the softer picks on the acoustic guitar for playing rhythm. It really makes it sound better from my perspective. But for playing leads and stuff, the harder pick is better for me at my level of guitar playing. I had my audio interface all set up in advance, things plugged in, ready to go, and it just makes for a better experience, right? To be prepared and to spend some time setting up. I mean, if you go to a real recording session, well, let me just tell you a story. So 2015, I wrote the music for the Special Olympics World Games for ESPN. And it's like a big Olympic fanfare kind of a thing. And I hired, I did the whole thing MIDI with my samples, and I played every note, and I played some electric and acoustic guitar in it. And we went to what's now called the Power Station at Berkeley, but it was called Avatar. It's the old Power Station. It's one of the last big recording studios in Manhattan. And it actually was a Con Edison power station in the 1970s before John Bon Jovi's father bought it and turned it into the Power Station. And hundreds, thousands of records have been recorded there of all kinds. And we recorded in the big room upstairs, which is like a big dome. It's really cool. And it's like a circular room with a big domed ceiling that's 35 feet high. And I had 19 horn players coming in, and we recorded them 3 times. We triple tracked them to make it sound like 3 times the amount of players, bigger sound, which is typical for film and television music. But the amount of planning that went in before we stepped foot into the recording studio was probably about 40 hours of planning. It was down to that they sent us a floor plan of the recording studio, and me and my friend who I hired to engineer the session, we meticulously figured out where the musicians would sit so that they would fit in with my samples, because everything, I was going to be leaving all the orchestral strings, all the percussion, everything else except the brass was going to be, and I actually was going to leave some of the low brass in the from my samples in the final product, but they were all recorded in situ, which means that where they sit typically in an orchestral seating is how they, when you played the notes, that's where they're coming out of, whatever side of the speaker. So we spent like a couple of days figuring out the best arrangements so that they would blend in. And we debated the kinds of microphones to use, and we had multiple microphones. We had microphones on, a couple of microphones on each section. We had something called a tree setup, which is above and behind the conductor. We had outriggers. They even had they have a microphone that's up in the cupola, up at the top of the dome, and we even planned to use that. Although that sounded horrible, we didn't use it in the end. And I spent a day planning out how the recording session was going to be run, right? I got a few of my students came in and were my assistants that day, and I actually, before I got to the studio, I stopped at the bagel place on 54th Street and 8th Avenue, and I ordered a huge spread for the musicians, and I sent my students to go pick it up, and as part of their being my tea people, which is how you used to learn how to work in a recording studio. You'd be the tea boy for a year or two and just make tea for people and run around and do errands and watch. But they did other things as well. And then, I spent like a few days talking with the contractor about which musicians I wanted to record. All this stuff before we got into the studio, and I didn't conduct the session. I hired my friend Sherry Rosen to conduct the session because she's fantastic, and also because she's like this. She's like the Rock of Gibraltar. She's so steady and smooth, and I knew that like in the heat of any moment, she'd be able to handle any stressful situation with an incredible amount of equanimity, and everything was planned out. And the session went smoothly with no problems. Literally, the guys in ESPN said they'd never been at a session that ran that smoothly. Well, because I spent like 40 hours planning it out to the last detail. Now, you don't have to do that with the kinds of recordings that we're doing here. But what I am saying is that preparation before you start recording will speed up your workflow and make your creative process a lot better. And the final product will be better, it'll be more pleasant to work.